The UN's climate change conference, known as COP, brings together nearly every country in the world to try and figure out a global response to climate change. What does the roadmap for countries actually look like? And how effective can a multilateral response be? I'm Mike Walter. Let's take it full frame.
Facing the devastating impacts of climate change.
It is possible to have a diplomatic agreement, then a process to have finance, to have technology, to eliminate a problem that affects everybody.
It's getting more difficult to talk about climate change because sometimes I felt people don't want to hear bad news. For us, or for my project, we try to mix some topics like inspiration, beauty.
Finding pathways to a green economy.
Affordability was always at the backbone of everything. And my question was, how do we make these alternative technologies affordable? Because if they're affordable, then people will have no issue buying them, and therefore we can then address climate change.
Protecting nature's most valuable assets.
Our land is simply a deep love for nature. It's a need to be in nature. It's a need for people to realize that humans are not separate from nature.
We are looking forward that Ondiri wetland continues to play its role in combating climate change through carbon sequestration that has been happening through the peat and the organic matter that is found over there.
Seeking solutions that drive global change.
Iterations and your ability to learn from doing is so important and critical to actually driving progress. And I think that's super important. So it's not about failure, it's about learning.
COP30, the climate meeting, next.
This year marks the 30th UN Climate Change Conference, COP30, taking place in Belém, a city at the gateway to Brazil's Amazon region. Nearly 200 nations meet to set goals and take action against climate change. Delegates work to provide long-term funding for countries facing irreversible climate impacts. They try to establish measurable targets for adaptation and aim to reach consensus on phasing down fossil fuels while scaling up renewable energy.
COP30 is hosted this year in Belém, Brazil, in the Amazon. I speak with Ambassador André Corrêa del Lago, the president of the event.
André Corrêa del Lago is the current president of the UN COP30, as well as the vice minister for climate, energy, and environment at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Brazil. What's it like having this leadership role for Brazil for the COP30?
Well, for Brazil, it is a very special moment because we have many reasons why we are somehow relevant in this debate. One of them, some of them are positive, some of them are negative. So what are the negatives? Is that Brazil is many times remembered because of deforestation, for instance, and we have the largest forest, tropical forest in the world. So people talk about Brazil when they talk about climate. They think of Brazil as a forest country, and by the way, that's why President Lula chose to do it in the Amazon. No? On the other side, Brazil is the champion of renewables, so we are very advanced in energy. We have 90% of our electricity is renewable in Brazil, which is amazing for such a big economy. Then we have very good scientists, very good institutions, so we may be even more part of the solution.
I think, for me, your role is basically getting into a boxing ring against a renowned heavyweight and just getting beaten up for 15 rounds, because you've got so many issues. You've got big, powerful countries. You've got countries that are suffering, who don't have as much power. I mean, you've got to navigate all this stuff.
Yeah.
Why would anyone want the job that you have?
I didn't say I wanted the job. It happened. It happened. But anyway, I hope we can do something nice. I really think we can do something nice.
You hope to do something nice. What does that look like?
The U.S. is leaving the Paris Accord, but the fact is that it's about believing in finding solutions together. So I think this is the main thing. The other one is that I think that we have to explain better climate change to people and the climate change regime, because I think that somehow it became something among experts or people that think that explaining is beyond them and things like that. So we need to explain what we're doing, and once we explain what we're doing, I think that people will understand that this is worthwhile. We have to remember the ozone layer. You remember the ozone layer was an incredible threat, and a diplomatic agreement ended with 95% of the gases that provoke the destruction of the ozone layer, and the ozone layer is recovered. So it is possible to have a diplomatic agreement, then a process, to have finance, to have technology, to eliminate a problem that affects everybody.
We see in China production of solar and wind, and they're turning out EVs like crazy. There are pockets out there of hope, right?
There are very impressive examples, and I think that this is the news that we have to bring, because I believe that telling the problems that we're going to have with climate, which is very important because you have to tell people what's going to happen, but it is a very sad story. So we really have to try to transform that agenda into a positive agenda. So an example is forests. Yes, deforestation has grown, and deforestation is an enormous problem because not only it provokes emissions, but you eliminate part of what we have to capture, CO2 that is in the atmosphere. But then, if you look at forests as the possibility of reforesting, to have a restoration of forests, when you restore a forest, that forest is the only scientifically proven way to eliminate CO2 that has already been emitted. So a massive reforestation can have an extraordinary impact and can help us in those essential years that we have ahead of us, which is like 7 years or 8 years, according to science, to really try to change course. So you look at forests as something negative now, you can see forests are a good solution. Agriculture is a good solution. You can also capture. It's a natural way of capturing CO2. So we have to change the perception of some of the things that are seen, oh, that's it, that's very bad, and show that we can do it in the right way. And I believe that we have massive examples now, massive examples. The case of China that you mentioned is incredible. Who would have thought that already in 2025, China, which is the largest market in the world of cars, is selling more EVs than cars that are not electric. It's incredible.
Decarbonizing the economy will mean clean technologies across many sectors. I speak to Vanessa Chan, Vice Dean of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the University of Pennsylvania School of Engineering.
Chan previously served as the Chief Commercialization Officer at the U.S. Department of Energy and Director of the Office of Technology Transition. Under her leadership, the department pushed for clean energy technologies. Chan has been recognized as one of Time magazine's top 100 most influential business leaders in climate.
So moving inventions from the lab to the real world is critical to our economy. But most inventions don't make it. They die in the lab. Consider the light bulb.
I met Chan in Chicago at the Aspen Ideas Climate event.
So let's start
Sure.
with the light bulb. You have this great TED Talk and you talk about Thomas Edison, and you tell kind of the story of Edison. For our viewers, what is the story?
Sure. So I like to ask people who actually invented the light bulb, and many people believe it's Thomas Edison, but he actually didn't invent the light bulb. It was a guy named Jonathan Swan, who was a person who figured out if you were to carbonize a wire and pass electricity through it, you actually could give off light. And he wrote a paper, did the patent. But what Thomas Edison did was he actually figured out how to bring the light bulb to market. So he understood if we're going to make this something that every human is going to use, we need to figure out how do we have the lifetime be more than a few hours? How do we pull a vacuum off into the bulb itself so we can make the lifetime longer? How do we actually manufacture this at a cost where people can afford it? How do we actually convince the utilities, instead of piping gas to the homes, they actually pipe electricity? So there's all these other things that one has to do to have technologies make it to the marketplace that actually have nothing to do with the heart of the technology, that have to do with influencing an ecosystem to do things. And so I love that story because everyone thinks Thomas Edison was the father of the light bulb, but he really was the father of deploying the light bulb. The inventor of the light bulb was someone else who nobody really knows.
At the Department of Energy, Chan's department published Pathways to Commercial Liftoff, which were reports aimed at providing a roadmap for decarbonization.
Creative thinking, which you obviously have, and being a disruptor. What were some of the challenges you faced when you joined the administration, and how tough is it to be a disruptor trying to, shake the cage in Washington, because they have a certain way of doing things, and it's slow, and it takes forever to kind of make things change.
Well, I think it's really important that people like to talk about things in generalities. And I think the world is much more nuanced than that. And so, anytime that you want to drive change, it's important to find other people who also want to drive change in the big organization that you're in. So, at DOE, as I got to know people, there were people who kind of understood the things that had to happen in order for technology deployed. And I started collecting those people. People who were feds, who were political appointees, who really understood the need to do things differently as this infusion of money was coming. And as I got to know those people, we started thinking about pilots that we needed, of how do we actually think about aligning the private sector with the public sector so we actually can come up with an approach together of how we deploy these technologies. And that's where the Pathways to Commercial Liftoff came about, was this idea of a national roadmap that we write with the private sector on what it will take to bring these technologies to market. And so hydrogen, nuclear, long duration energy storage, and carbon management, I found leaders in all those technologies who understood the need to do this. The good news is that I had to go through that personal transformation myself. I have a PhD from MIT Material Science and Engineering, and when you are doing a PhD, you're very much in the weeds of data and then wanting to vet everything, so you need scientific integrity. When you go into the real world, it's 80-20. CEOs are making decisions based on gut instinct, based on good enough data. It's like two completely different mindsets. So when I went into the consulting world, I had a really hard time with that shift. And I think what's interesting is, having personally gone through it, I knew how disturbing this was to some people because it didn't feel right what we were doing. And so we had to bring people on that journey. I think having personally gone through it, I knew why people would be very hesitant about this kind of disruption. So I think it takes a lot about patience, about understanding people who have to go through a journey you went through, and then really be good at listening, and then hiring the right team. And so the team that I had that was driving the liftoff reports were amazing humans that were super patient, no ego, and really wanted to collaborate. And that was a hallmark for people on our team, was you couldn't come in here if you had an ego, because it doesn't work. You can't drive change with egos.
I ducked into one of the sessions. The guy said, when he was talking about climate, he said, it's bad, it's now, there is hope. So I want to talk to you about the first two. It's bad and it's now. You know that. You're in this job, but you have to have patience. How tough is that?
Well, I think it's really important to be careful with the words that you use, because I think sometimes when we use bad, it just panics people. And bad is a relative term, right? What you see as bad may not be what I see as bad. And I think in the end, you have to find language and approaches that everybody agrees with. So when we did the Pathways to Commercial Liftoff, I was very focused on risks and economics because the private sector is rational and they want to be doing things that are going to ultimately make money. And you can only make money if people are willing to buy it, and you can only buy it if it's affordable. And so for me, affordability was always at the backbone of everything. And my question was, how do we make these alternative technologies affordable? Because if they're affordable, then people will have no issue buying them. And therefore, we can then address climate change. So to me, the story has always been about affordability of technologies that happen to also help solve climate change. So where I am hopeful is, we did a dozen of these liftoff reports from nuclear to hydrogen to others. And, I will never admit which are my favorite, just like your children, you can't do that. I think the other thing that we can't be is black and white, where you can't be like, okay, switch off all of fossil fuels right now. We're going totally to clean energy. We can't because the economics aren't there yet. And so there is a role for gas right now because as the demand for energy is increasing with AI and data centers, in every single pocket, we have to figure out what economics make the most sense for the people in those places right now. And so I'm a realist. I'm somebody who wants to drive things fast, but in a way where we can bring people along and in a way which is how humans think. And humans are actually relatively simple people. Right? Like we need affordability. And if it's something is affordable, we're happy to do good for the world. And so I think that's where the trade-off is around situations where people have two jobs trying to put food on the table. And we're saying, you need to worry about climate change. And they're like, I can't feed my child right now. I don't have the luxury of doing that. So we have to meet them where they are, which is, well, you should go clean because solar is cheaper. And they're like, oh, it's cheaper, I'm all in. So I think that's what's really important is how you get to the bad now in patience. It's really more about understanding what motivates people and then driving towards that together.
During this year's UN General Assembly meeting, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and 16 other world leaders signed a joint letter that called for speeding up the production and use of clean energy. The letter stated, quote, "The situation is clear. A clean energy transition is happening, and it is here to stay. We must ensure it is a just and equitable transition."
It's interesting. I just returned from China. I was there for a month, but I went to a couple of EV plants. I mean, they're just churning out EVs like crazy. There's solar, there's wind. It just seems like they're moving so fast on all of these avenues. I mean, it seems like the United States, I think, when you were in the administration, yeah, they're moving fast, but then you get a new administration in, or maybe they go back this way. And then maybe we get another administration that also wants to go fast, and this kind of windshield wiper back and forth. Can you talk to me about the frustrations of that and how do you kind of think it should be a straight line, but it's not, it's zigzaggy.
So people ask me what was the most surprising thing when you joined the administration. And I will say the way in which we do appropriations and budgeting was really shocking to me because the way it works in the federal government is that the Congress sets the budget. But as the agency, I'm not allowed to talk to Congress about the budget because then I'm lobbying. They can come and talk to me and ask for clarifying questions, but I can't actually tell them, here's the things I think you should go invest in. And if you look at the private sector, it's actually inverse to the private sector. It'd be the equivalent of the CFO, who's Congress, sitting outside of the CEO, CTO, CSO, all the people who execute things and making decisions on their own, then lobbing the money in and saying, go and execute on this. And they're like, we didn't know you were going to give us this money. We don't have a plan. And then they're like, well, it doesn't matter because you need to get the money out the door. And if you have any holdover and you're not getting out the money quickly, we're going to be very upset at you. So you look at that as our construct right now for how appropriations happens. Whereas China is more like the private sector. They create a multi-year strategy. They look at it and they say, okay, how are we going to fund this strategy so we can go after it? So that is where a fundamental disconnect is happening, is that we have a challenge with the way that we do appropriations. And one of the reasons why we did the Pathways to Commercial Liftoff was I think we needed a strategy and roadmap for these technologies, which is if you're going to want to fund these arenas, here's the areas where the risks are the highest. And I personally think that the role of government is to take risks where the private sector won't. But in the end, the private sector is $23 trillion. Even the half a trillion we have is a lot of money, but it's nothing compared to the 23 trillion. And so I think the challenge we have is how do we have the certainty in different administrations so that the private sector knows what they need to do. And that is the challenge, is the lack of certainty, because private sector will actually figure things out even if it's not in their favor. They just need to know what's going to be happening. And that is the biggest challenge.
Yeah, and China has their 5-year plans. I always say in the United States, in Washington, it seems like a 5-minute plan or a 5-month plan. What excites you about what's out there in terms of like the move? And also, I want to talk to you about the private sector, because if you're putting money forward, but they're also matching money, at some point you've already kind of given them the keys to the car, right? I mean, they'll still move in that direction, won't they? I mean, even if you've given the seed money, they're going to add, or do a lot of the things that you started, do they just go away?
I think it depends on what's going to happen with some of the tax credits and other things that are happening in DC right now, because I think in the end, what we need to do, going back to your question of regulations, right, is I think regulations should be used to spur the private sector. And then liftoff we defined as the point in time at which a technology no longer needs any government support for it to be deployed in the market, because every single player in the value chain can make money, it's affordable to consumers, and all of that. But we can't get there magically. Like people say China stole solar, and they didn't steal it. What happened was we invented solar photovoltaics, but when we had it in the early days, it was not at all economical. And so no one wanted to invest in it because it was not going to make money. So China was like, we don't care. We're going to spend time trying to scale this technology. We're going to lose a lot of money, but we know on the other side, there's going to be a lot of potential because solar is going to be cheap at some point in time. And so what happened was they were willing to invest when there was no returns. And so when it got to the point where solar was making money, we at the US were like, hang on a minute, we should have, been making the money. So it's like the equivalent of inventing Olympic sport and then not wanting to train. And then when another country is training and then they're on the medal platform, you're like, wait a minute, I invented that. It's like, yes, but we didn't do the work we needed to drive the economics down. And so that's kind of where my head is right now, is how do we actually drive the private sector to do things where we actually cannot make money right now, but we can later on. So I think we need to move away from thinking about first of a kind to more 10 of a kind. So how do we actually finance the first 10 of a kind of something so that we can get down the cost curve? Because right now we're in the Squid Games where everyone is first in line to be 8th or ninth. No one is first in line to be first or second because they know they're going to lose their shirt on those first of a kind as we're learning how to do things.
In the United States, only 3% of patents for new innovations make it to commercialization.
This gets back to another issue that you talk about, which is failure, that it's okay to fail. I mean, that's a good thing. I think this risk-averse kind of attitude, as you point out, like, I'm in, but wait, I'm not going to make money, I'm out. And then all of a sudden, like, hey, they got there. Well, how did this happen? So what's the lesson there?
So I actually don't like failure. It's like the 4-letter F word that you can't use in my house. The other ones are fine because there really isn't a such thing as failure. Because in my mind, I'm a scientist, right? So you do an experiment, you have a hypothesis, and the hypothesis was wrong. You didn't get the outcome you expected, but you learned things in that outcome that you then use to do your next experiment. And so I think that is the point of it. You mentioned, China is iterating. Iterations and your ability to learn from doing is so important and critical to actually driving progress. And I think that's super important. So it's not about failure, it's about learning. And so the problem with failure is you are using a word that has a very negative context. You are a failure. you failed at something versus, oh, that didn't work. I learned something. Here's where I'm going to go next. So I think that reframing is really important.
What's next for you?
So I am really excited. I'm the inaugural Vice Dean for Innovation Entrepreneurship at Penn Engineering. I spent the last 25 years thinking about how do you actually drive impact from research. As a PhD, I had published a lot of papers, and including a first author in science. And people are, you could be a professor anywhere. But my question was, how do papers actually translate to the real world? So I've been thinking about this since I was 25. And what I'm doing now is thinking about how do we bring the next generation of scientists and engineers to have more impact in the world. And I think the way to do that is to bring the world into the universities so they have a better understanding of what are the problems we're trying to solve. And so I think really trying to create the next leaders in technology is my personal passion, because in the end, scientists and engineers who understand the real world are the ones who are going to drive the change. So I'm really trying to make the next Thomas Edisons of the world is really my goal.
Well, I have a feeling you're going to shape them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Coming up,
As I lived a life in the corporate world, I started to question the meaning of what I was doing. I would head out into the jungle. I was able to hear myself think. I felt calm in nature.
The United Nations, working with the G20, launched the Global Land Initiative to tackle one of the world's most urgent challenges, land degradation. From Kenya to Thailand, the UN's vision for restoration is coming to life through community empowerment, innovation, and new business models.
Our land is a nature conservation effort. It's an effort to bring people back to nature again. We run a nature and sustainability education center where children and adults come to learn about being in nature or about sustainability and how to spend a good time in nature. The three core pillars of our land are conservation, sustainability, and education.
All right, now if you could just head to the skull of the creature that you feel is endangered. Just head there and stand there. You're right on this one, not up there, but down here, right?
My name is Vijay Virgas, and we are currently in Wangdong, which is on the edge of the Western Forest Complex, which is the largest contiguous forest complex in Southeast Asia.
My journey as a drone pilot begins from my background in film and technology. I decided to pursue drone piloting to enhance filmmaking and engage with technology in a way that supports the community. My name is Nashipai Oitayun Kadayo. I'm a licensed drone pilot and a licensed drone instructor.
My name is Anshuman Tripathi. I am one of the co-founders of Our-Land. My title is the CFO for Our-Land, and I'm basically handling the sales and the book side of things. One of the biggest challenges in running a conservation project is balancing between your environmental responsibilities and your financial realities.
For the big seed, just use let's play. Oh, one seed only, guys. Trust me, it's a lot easier with one person just doing all three things. Yeah. Slingshot shooting seems quite easy, right?
but please tune in for safety. I've seen a lot of people when they're using the slingshot tend to put their finger inside the slingshot. So number one, that's not the right way to do it. Number two, do not, even as a joke, aim it at your friends. Like, we've had cases in which people are like, "Ah!" and goes off to somebody's face or nose or something, or eyes.
Our approach in our land has been through providing travelers a nature-based education and allowing them to be in contact with nature so that they understand the benefits that they get from it.
One at a time, guys, one at a time, decrease the vibration. We take visitors out to the local communities and do activities with them, like planting new trees. Most people don't realize the impacts that their bodies go through while living in city. Whether that is the impurity of the air, the sounds that they're listening to at all times, the kind of foods that they're eating. As I lived a life in the corporate world, I started to question the meaning of what I was doing. I would head out into the jungle. I was able to hear myself think. It felt calm in nature.
I'm Alicia Lago, an environmental scientist and senior product manager. The Friends of Ondiri Swamp reached out to us. They needed support with mapping of their area, and we were able to find a legal and professional drone pilot who would be available to actually do the mapping for them, to have an aerial view of all the efforts in terms of restoring the Ondiri wetland. African Drone is a network of drone service providers, and its main mission is to empower local drone pilots within the different countries of the African continent through skills development, resource sharing, advocacy, and networking opportunities in the different initiatives that they work on.
Don't go beyond there, or we will hear chubwi, and then you'll begin swimming. My name is Robert Meyer. I'm an environmentalist working on conservation, conserving the Ondiri wetland. It is an important natural resource because it is the main water supply for the residents of Kikuyu, more than 60,000 at the moment. The project is the Ondiri Wetland Botanic Gardens. We decided to partner with nature to see how we can do restoration. We have some species that are regarded as rare. We have some that are endangered. We have some that are facing extinction. And so by bringing them back, we are bringing back the original ecosystem. All of them, they were planted the same day?
I'm saying this one is quite bigger than that one. It is growing even faster.
When we apply drone technology, we'll be able to get the exact coordinates. We'll be able to identify the specific areas that require restoration. We'll also be able to monitor the work that we have been doing. And that is the reason why we are working with African Drone. They are going to help us to first map the area. They are also going to help us to map out our restoration activities.
What's actually happening? Please analyze the image. Use your advanced cognitive abilities.
Well, there's the roads and there's also farms.
Absolutely. So let's start on that. There is a road over here, and this major road has quite a bit of issues as cars are going by. Past 2 years, 8 elephant-to-vehicle crashes, 8 dead elephants, and a few elephants severely handicapped. We have managed to get lights there, at least, so at night, because the main issue is at night, they're super dark, don't see elephant. Why is our land here?
protect the elephant, give them a place to, all of the animals a place to like be safe, have a safe access to the water.
That is correct, and that is called a wildlife
Corridor.
corridor. Thank you.
That's our land.
That's our land. That's true.
We're gonna be floating down the river to get to our
You're going to floating down the river to get to our land.
That's where we're going.
Cognitive abilities working. Accessing our land is a journey in itself. We float down the river for about 40 minutes, and then we get to the spot that the elephants come for a drink of water. Then we walk through the jungle to learn about how the elephants manage the ecosystem. We are about to head into the jungle, and we need a little bit of calmer energy, right?
Yeah.
We had a lot of high energy, that was fun. So, one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, right? Being in nature for children is really important. In developed countries, 5 to 10% of children have anxiety disorders. And I think a main reason is that they're not getting enough nature time. What we are basically doing is working on their biophobia. Biophobia is a fear that people have of nature. We're moving them from biophobia into biophilia, which is the love for nature. The piece of land that our land owns is part of a corridor. We have not completed the corridor yet, and our objective is to acquire more so we can allow easy access for the elephants to go through. Now a new superhighway between Bangkok and Kanchanaburi, which has skyrocketed the prices in this area. And Kanchanaburi is now set to be another super eco destination. What that actually means is that a lot of destruction to the environment in the area as new resorts come up and new tourism facilities start to turn up.
And then you have Africa Drone. That supports us in that.
Using drone will allow us to quickly gather high resolution aerial imagery to create detailed maps. So this is the drone that will help us out in the mapping and also the photography. Yeah, so what we do first is just set it up.
These are the landing gears.
Yeah, these are the landing gears. Yeah. So drone technology significantly enhanced our ability to plan and monitor, leading to a more effective and efficient restoration process. We are ready to take off. Okay. Start our mission.
It's a special dust.
You think? What do you mean? That?
Special dust that needs to be at the knobs, you know?
Okay.
So that if you turn it this way, it sympathizes this one.
Flying a drone in a place like Ondiri wetland was an incredible and a very, very nice experience. As I fly the drone, I get to see the beautiful view and how the birds have occupied the area. I get to focus on the screen as the drone ascends. Watching the live feed, I see the details of the ecosystem, the patterns of the growth, the diversity of plant life, and even the wildlife moving about. It's a moment of reflection, considering how technology can play a role in protecting such vital ecosystem.
There, where? Over there. You can see.
We all work in this industry through passion. if we weren't determined, if we weren't passionate, we wouldn't be out in the middle of nowhere trying to do this, or we wouldn't go out of our way to try to get there.
Our land is simply a deep love for nature. It's a need to be in nature. It's a need for people to realize that humans are not separate from nature. Researchers have looked into it and they found that about 120 to 140 minutes per week is a good amount of time to be spending in nature. So that's what the Our Land concept is. It's just to bring people back into nature.
So this is just the road that leads us to that. You see the path there. So these are the pictures.
We are looking forward that Ondiri wetland continues to play its role in combating climate change through carbon sequestration that has been happening through the peat and the organic matter that is found over there. We are also looking forward by establishing those botanic gardens that we are bringing back biodiversity.
So you have the photos, you have the videos, and you also have the mosaic map, the botanic garden.
Coming up,
In Latin America, there's not another wildlife film festival. So that's how we started to working with different communities in Colombia, in Peru, in Argentina, Mexico, Brazil. And now Santiago Wild Film Festival is the most important film festival about these topics in the region.
Storytelling can educate people about climate change and inspire them to take action. Martin Del Rio is the founder of Lago, a media platform for stories about nature and the environment.
Del Rio founded the Santiago Wild Film Festival in 2019, creating a network of Latin American storytellers and filmmakers. In 2022, he launched Festival Lago, an event that brings together content creators, musicians, entrepreneurs, and NGOs.
I want to talk about your connection with nature, because I always think back to as a kid going camping and looking at the stars in the sky and the campfire and that whole connection. Sometimes it starts at an early age. For you, what was that experience like?
For me was that same story that you tell. Like I grew up in Chile and we are a big family. And we started doing camping and travel around Chile. Chile have amazing places from the north of the desert of the Atacama to Patagonia. And with my family, we'll always do camping. And I was a nature person. Like I love the animals, trekkings, I don't know, bikes. So for me was to grow up in a place where nature was part of my life.
So reconnecting people with nature, that mission for you,
Yeah.
How do you define that?
Yeah, because when I grew up and living in a big city, I live in Santiago, it's the capital of Chile. And I think it's happening in every city, in the big cities of the world. I started to see like the people start to disconnect to nature. And I don't know, I asked some friends or some people say they don't know where is the water is coming from the tap, like, and where there are the glaciers in the mountains. So when the people start to disconnect about that's so normal things, I said, wow, we have a big job. Like we have to start like the people stand learn about we are part of nature. The humans and we are part of the nature. So that's why I started this project, like with that mission to reconnect people, to have a better society and then a healthy planet.
Talk to us about the experience of launching your platform and kind of the drive behind that.
Yeah. Now I don't know. I've been working in this job around 10 years, like, and when I started, I said, I don't know, everybody loves nature, like, and when the years comes. I knew that some people don't like nature. So it's why is it happening? And for me, it started to build a strong thing for my own life to have this cause to reconnect people with nature. So that's how it started to this dream to build a strong and multidisciplinary nature community in Chile, and now we're starting to work in all Latin America.
And that's been the spillover effect, right? I mean, you start in Chile, but it's moving elsewhere.
Yeah. This dream started in Chile, but now we're working in a lot of countries of different parts of Latin America, because I think the thing what happened in Chile with my project, they started to write me for all the countries of Latin America, and we have one project that was I think the key to this project go to another part of the world was we made a film festival about nature, the first film festival in Chile. The name is Santiago Wild Film Festival, and this project started in pandemia. And when we started, and the best thing was like the whole country saw it, because was in the middle of the pandemia. Everyone was in his house, but that we realized that they saw it only in another country of the region. So they started to write to us and said, please, can you bring the festival to our city, or how can we work together? So that's how we started to think this project have to be like a project for the older region, because in Latin America there's not another wildlife film festival. So that's how we started to working with different communities in Colombia, in Peru, in Argentina, Mexico, Brazil. And now Santiago Wild Film Festival is the most important film festival about these topics in the region.
Wow.
And we were aimed to empowering the filmmaker and the storyteller of the region, because there's a lot of talent there.
A lot of people have dreams, but making a dream into reality is not always an easy journey. So what were kind of the stumbling blocks as you set out to do this, some of the challenges you faced?
Well, I think the most challenging thing always is the money. But I started to work with different companies. They believe in me. They believe in this cause, like to protect nature. I don't know, maybe I can say like Patagonia, or different brands like them that they believe in this. And I started with the dream, and the first year was only me. And I don't know, around the fifth or sixth year of the project, I sell a part of the company that I found, so I have some money to have a bigger team. So it's not easy to build a dream, but if you are like constantly, you don't stop, the good things start to happen. Like, and for me, it's also very impressive to work 10 years this project, and now stay here with you in Washington, like with that Geo, and celebrate this thing. Like, it's very impressive.
We've talked about the film festival, but in addition, in 2022, you decided to launch another festival. And it's interesting because you bring musicians, I mean, all kinds of different people together. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, because we realized that we want to go farther, get out of the woods and try to connect and reach with the masses. So we decide to create a new festival. Now, 3 days in a park with music and culture. And it was amazing because last year was attended more than 20,000 people.
Wow.
Common people, like. So I think that's what is one of our goals, to try to connect or reconnect people with nature, but with the common people. Because the people who love nature like me, we are just convert. So I think our mission is try to create projects for the common people. And this festival was amazing because with music, speakers, different kind of culture things, the people received the invitation and they went.
And what does it do, bringing all of those people together? What's the net result of that, would you say?
No, I think they feel part for a community, for feel part of, for be part of this nature community. Festival is opportunity. This last one, this Ladera Sur Festival, is opportunity to learn about this topic, and then that people give this message for the, I don't know, different kind of people.
This year, National Geographic awarded Del Rio with a Wayfinder Award, which honors explorers who are redefining what it means to lead in science, conservation, education, technology, and storytelling.
When you started a decade ago, people were still starting to think about that perhaps, but now it's even more urgent.
Yeah.
Setting up a platform like this as kind of a sounding board, like this is something we need to protect. We've got to make sure that nature stays. I mean, it becomes, I think, even more vital as time passes what you're doing, right?
Yeah, for sure. You said it. 10 years ago, we started with this movement about to the climate change, and for example, in my country, 2019 was the host of the COP, this UN most important event about climate change, and well, that's another story. But and finally, that COP didn't happen in Chile because it was suspended. 1 month before the COP start in Chile, there was a huge social crisis. The country was paralyzed, and the COP was suspended. But, well, that's another story. But that's mean that for the country, all these topics about the climate change was very important very earlier, because Chile was one of the country was wanna be suffer more the answer of the climate change. We're getting driest in the central zone, and so now I think now it's getting more difficult to talk about climate change because sometimes I felt people don't want to new bad news or tell every day like your city is changing, your life is gonna change. So there's like a kind of resistance of changes. So, but for us, or for my project, we try to mix some topics like inspiration, beauty, natural disaster, like, because it's the only way for have I don't know, a daily nature things for who is easier for the regular common people for every day. So that's my secret, like, of my project, like mix the topics, because if you only talk about climate change and the worst things that are gonna happen, the people don't want to know.
It's a turnoff.
Yeah, the turnoff.
So content-wise, how do you determine what you're going to place, and talk to me about that first, the first few days versus 10 years in? What are some of the things you've learned along the way about content?
The first years?
Yeah.
I think I started, it's gonna sound funny, but dreaming like to be an Geo, like starting working with the people who is in the fields, the photographers, the scientists, like the people who love these topics every day. They feel it. That's the most important thing for a project like this. You need it. So the first year when I started with this project, I started to find who are these people in my country, and it was amazing because when I started with this project, I started with around 50 person, and when we launched it, I don't know, in 3 days we received more than 40 mails like, I want to be part of that. So I think this project, Ladera Sur, is like a place, a community, when the people can be part of this, and it's like a family, and that's what these people need, like be part of something. And if we work all together, the message is have more impact. I think that's what I'm learning in these 10 years, because it's very, very difficult to work alone in these topics about nature. So we have to create and be part of something big. In the third impulse, I create Ladera Sur, nature media, the first one in the country. The first things I realized that the project have to be collaborative. We have to work all together if we want to have impact. Because it doesn't matter where you come from, where you study, or where you do for a living. We have to work all together. So that's how I started this dream to build a strong and multidisciplinary nature community.
To give an address to a group of like 300 people, you were the last one to speak. What was that like?
Yeah, it was very challenging for me. Okay, it's true. We speak Spanish, so for me in these 10 years, I did a lot of talks, but this time was different, doing in English, and also a big audience. All the explorers of the world, the most important explorers of Nat Geo were there, the founders of the Nat Geo, and different people kind of that. So no, but they're amazing. I think now I feel part of a new family, and it's the same thing that happened in Chile with my community, that the community that I found when I'm here with the Nat Geo community. You see, it's the same kind of people. Like the people who love these topics are the same here in US, maybe in Chile. So Nat Geo have this amazing project to have like a global community.
So you've got a global community, a very important, influential audience that you're addressing. What was the message you tried to convey as you left the stage?
I tried to say like reinforce the idea. If we have to work all together if we want to have impact. It's very difficult to be alone to try to reconnect people with nature. So that's what I said last night. Like, we need to stay together, work together, try to connect with different explorers, in this case, for whole over the world, and try to give different tools for more people who like these topics. So now I try to, when I come back to my country, I want to reinforce the entire idea, give opportunity to more people who love these topics.
One final question before I let you go. You're a dreamer. You've had a couple of dreams that have been very successful. Are there any more up here?
Yes, yes, the dream.
Of course.
Of course. No, for me, I would like to, Ladera Sur, this media of nature in Chile, to start to really work in different countries of Latin America and build a very strong and nature media from the south to the north, but trying to work with different person of the region.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for the invitation.
For more episodes, go to CGTNnow.com.
That's this special COP30 edition of Full Frame. If you know of other visionaries you'd like to see on our show, email us at fullframe@cgtnamerica.com. And from all of us here at Full Frame, thank you so much for watching.